Paul Tuttles, Sr. with Orange County Choppers is here with the foundation. Tonight, first of all, thank you to being part of tonight. You're welcome. I am proud to be here. They were the kings of custom motorcycles, making turning wrenches into gold on Discovery Channel. But upon receiving, cameras stopped rolling, and then the stars of Chopper lost everything. Bankruptcy filings revealed debts in the millions. Lawsuits flew between family members. One son vanished into the thin air of history after filing a $250,000 lawsuit. Another fought addiction when his father threw him out. The mansion continued to feature them on TV, went into foreclosure. It was a business empire that eventually collapsed. Today, they are spread all over the country. And what happened to each of them the information will probably shock you. Paul Tuttles, Sr. He used to build shouting orders, dream motorcycles, standing like a king. Inside Orange County Choppers, his giant, standing with his arms crossed, wearing sunglasses, in a tone, booming through the shop. Paul Tuttles, Sr. wasn't just building bikes. She was a TV star, a brand, an icon of old school hard. Fans watched every episode, cheering as engines roared and tempers flared. However, off-camera, it was a different story. The very empire was already falling apart. Until February 2018, when everything came crashing down. He filed for Chapter 13, bankruptcy, quietly admitting he owed nearly $170,800, ring it to almost 50 different creditors. His assets were listed at $190,001,729. But the truth was even more brutal. He was earning $15.70, $93 a month, but spending $12,612 just to keep their heads above the water. There was not left behind. The house in the city of Montgomery, New York that once was home to fans, watched him proudly go build on TV. Into foreclosure. In 2019, he had no choice but to sell it for just $1.50 million. He wanted more than double that. The sale even included tools and farm animals because every cent counted. Yet, money was not the only issue. Disaster. His own business, in 2017, sued him for breach of the partnership agreement filed by his partner, Thomas Derbyshire. Fraud. Derbyshire had put in $3 million to help launch a new show. But Paul burned through it, Sr. said. Court documents related what actually happened. He postponed filming. Sometimes a man will stay at an artisan fishing village for an entire week, so he can go fishing. He refused to work with people they had. The employee was already hired. He secretly took money from budget for the payment of his son Michael's salary without letting anyone find out. He even made side trades, exchanging dog food for his girlfriend's animal rescue project and snagging free gear for his shop on the side. Every step was concealed. Every deal was off the books. Then came more legal confusion. A federal judge found him in contempt of court for not paying $17,000 to JTM Motorsports. They were working on his 2009 Chevrolet Corvette ZR1. He never paid any of them. He also owed the town of Crawford $151,000, $230.90 in back taxes. In addition, he had a_SN $21,300 in credit card debt. And it didn't stop there as reports surfaced, tying him to an alleged scheme that hoodwinked Central American investors out of from $12 to $15 million. It was all tied to his OC Roadhouse project in Florida. By March 2020, he packed up and left New York when the first shop that what once made him famous was done. He moved everything to Clearwater, Florida, starting afresh with the OC Museum and Roadhouse. The name was still big. The bikes still were loud. But the glory was gone. The money was gone. The trust was gone. He's 76 now and still builds bikes and shows up on YouTube and is gripping handlebars and the whole bit, acting like old times. Never finished. Paul Tuttles Jr. Paul Tuttles Jr. was once the face of a roaring empire. He built choppers that custom-ordered. That shocked the world. His designs ran on the Discovery Channel. He collaborated with, sided with his father, Paul Sr., and they put together Orange County. Chopper's a household name, but fame only lasted as long. What began as a dream finished in courtroom battles that ranged from betrayal to bankruptcy. One day, a storm came and destroyed everything he had constructed. It all began to fall apart in 2008 during the height of American Chopper's popularity. Cameras were rolling when Paul Sr. exploded on his son. The argument wasn't for the new. They had been fighting for years about who was calling the real shots. But this time, it went further. Paul Sr. fired his son live on television, as is often the case. That Junior was out. No office, no bicycles, no staff. His name was still on the company, though. He owned 20% of Orange County Choppers. And that's where the real war began. Abuelo did not want his son owning anything. He triggered a buyout clause buried in their business agreement, one that would let him take Junior out altogether. But instead of fairly valuing the 20% Senior's own, appraiser claimed it was worth zero. Nothing. The same son who helped build the company, who designed the bikes that made them famous, was now told his share. It meant absolutely nothing. Junior fought back. He went to court and by December, appeal for he won the 2010 ruling. Judges ruled the deal was unenforceable. They never agreed on the way to calculate the value. So Paul Jr. was allowed to hold onto his stake, but the damage was done. The family was something that was broken and the business had turned into a battlefield. In 2009, trying to save, they signed the Discovery Channel deal, a temporary truce. But the tension never was gone. The trust had been breached. And so Junior started afresh. He started his own company, Paul Jr. Designs, and relocated his shop to Ship Bottom, New Jersey. He didn't have the original crew, the old garage or the backing of some reality show empire, but he did have his hands, his style, and his name. Big brands came calling. Microsoft, Cadillac, Mercedes-Benz. He built custom choppers for all of them. They were still stopping traffic with the bikes and stay. But behind the success, money, trouble started to creep in. By March 2018 was the year when all the numbers really told the story. Paul Jr. filed Chapter 13. Bankruptcy. His assets were listed at 18001,729S. But his debt burden was almost just as large. $178.93. Def. Moreover, he owed $51,308 in back taxes. His largest asset was his mansion in Montgomery, New York, valued at $1.8 million. But that house wasn't enough to hold everything up from falling apart. A slow, painful collapse. The fame was still there, but the old fortune was gone. Even now, Paul Jr. is still in the game. He appears at high-level motorcycle competitions. He lords judges fancy concourse events. He still builds bicycles, but he is no longer a part of the empire he helped build. Orange County Choppers moved on without him. His net worth today is just 2% of that million, far from what it could be, have been. He built bikes that were presented all over the world. He assisted in the change of family garage into a global brand. And eventually, he lost the shop, the name, and of the confidence of him who instructed him. For everything to come undone, 1 decade sufficed to go from being television royalty to bankruptcy court. But throughout it all, he continued to build. Mikey Chutel. When American Chopper burst onto TV screens, people listened to the roaring engines, the custom bikes, and the wild fights. Falls between Paul Sr. and Paul Jr. But there was always that one person who would bring a breath of fresh air into the chaos. Mikey Chutel wasn't building bikes. He wasn't screaming or throwing wrenches. He was cracking jokes, answering phones, and cleaning around Orange County Chopper's shop. He was the soft spot in an show built on hard metal. But what most people didn't see behind the real Mikey. His battle wasn't with his family. He was arguing with himself. It was with the bottle. The drinking was quiet, almost a background noise inside his life. But as the seasons rolled on, that noise got louder. The addiction didn't stop with Mikey. Something that would affect him. It had shattered every part of his world. His father, Paul Sr., had built the business from scratch. Couldn't take it anymore. This wasn't just some break. Paul Sr. kicked Mikey out of Orange County. Choppers, period. The shop, the show, the family business. It all disappeared in one harsh decision. Fans gradually started noticing Mikey missing in action on episodes. He says, wasn't present at the builds. He wasn't in the background. People started to ask what was the impression, but it was actually much darker than anybody had guessed. Mikey had finally reached such a low point where he had no choice but to check himself into rehab. It was to fight for his life or lose it. Everything. Even after getting sober, trouble continued to follow him. In 2019, Scott Gunnels, a photographer, filed a suit against Mikey Paul Sr. and Orange County Choppers for copyright infringement. Back in 2013, Gunnels had taken pictures of Mikey. Those same photos started showing up on the show on Facebook pages and on merchandise, T-shirts, being sold for $19.95, $39.99 hoodies. His logo had been cut off one of the images used for Mikey's art exhibition. He had not given any permission. On August 18, 2020, the decision of a federal judge came in Gunnels' behalf. Paul Sr. was instructed, paying $258.4845 for using the images without authorization. It was an instant box office hit for a family already bruised by years of legal and emotional damage. Money problems didn't stop there. In 2004, Mikey bought a house from his own mother, Paula, for $550,000. It was a quiet place in Montgomery, New York. But 5 years later, in 2009, he had to sell that same home for just $460,000. He lost $90,000. His net worth was once $2 million, which had gradually gone down to end at just $1 million. It wasn't only about money. He was being fascinated by his life and shrink in every direction. Fame was fading. The mention no longer carried his name with motorcycles or laughter. It was tied to lawsuits, addiction,